just don't think it's not about it's not about I understand what the
Not on this side. Everybody else was there.
Come back with the job.
Thank you. Last time, yeah. I knew.
Is he back there?
We are streaming.
Okay. We approve the project. I think I'll go ahead and pull the trigger. I'd like to call this meeting to order. At this time, I would ask that everyone please rise, and Michael Stock will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by prayer.
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lord, for bringing us all together. Help us and guide us for good decisions for the city and the people within it. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Mike. Roll call.
Stock,
Yes.
Venable,
Here.
Meadows,
Here.
Beach,
Here.
Hurt,
Here.
Carter,
Here.
Ehlers,
Here.
Dorman.
Okay. I think she will be coming, I believe.
She's coming in now.
Oh, she's coming in right now. Okay. Well, we'll wait for her. Mhm. She sits down.
Parking lights are on in the window.
It's you.
Dorman.
Here. Any other news you'd like to share with us before we get started? Here? Okay. Thank everyone for coming this evening. At this time, we'll have the hearing of citizens' comments. I see we have a large crowd here today, and I think I know what probably most of you are interested in this evening. And I'd like to start out by saying that if you're here to say you think the Cancer Memorial Park is a good thing, I think everybody up here agrees with that. I don't think there's anyone here that is against the Cancer Memorial Park. This is a good thing, but we just need to maybe visit with you a little bit. So at this time, I would like to ask Charlie Melkersman if you would come to the podium. I know he's probably been a little frustrated with us. He wants to get this done at a certain time, and the city is notoriously slow on getting things done sometimes, and I know it is frustrating, so I apologize for that. But we have several things that we have to keep in mind. And I don't know if you had anything prepared, but
We do.
Well, okay, but before you start, I think we've been through the history of the project.
Right.
And so we probably don't need to do that. I thought maybe it might be more efficient for us just to maybe let the council ask some questions and kind of get things going that way as to what they might.
Could we, and I agree, Julie, I won't, go back over the history and that sort of thing. Most people have been here and have done that, and of course, appreciate the council allowing us to be here to present. Honorable Mayor Julie Thatcher, Earl, Carissa, and Teresa, thanks for allowing us to be here. But I thought possibly if we could, at least, I've got a gentleman here that would explain the fence, because there was concern, I think, on Earl's part about the fence not looking, as a nice fence. Earl and Julie has looked at a sample of the fence, which is sitting right there, and we can display that as well. But we did bring Adam Vanderslice in with us tonight, who's with Central Missouri Fencing, again, another Boonville business, which is several businesses have been involved with this as well. But we thought maybe he could speak to that a little bit and at least describe the fence, and then possibly there was two other issues that were brought up as well too. A light down on the sidewalk near the steps that we placed down there, and of course the signage. But I thought maybe we could just explain in a few sentences what that is for the general. I mean, the city council would probably not heard that part. I know Earl and Julie and I probably wore ourselves out with conversations regarding that, so we appreciate the opportunity to be here. But,
Well, Charlie, I would prefer to do it my way.
okay, that's fine,
And it's not that we don't think the fence would be a nice-looking fence, but have we got a problem?
Her horn.
If you don't know which one it's the
Been in
one,
there for half an hour. It's not going
it's the one that's
Well,
honking.
then, with that, Julie, I'll sit down.
Because
and
we
just
may go
read
through
it.
a lot of things that we don't need to talk
Sure,
about.
sure.
So if you don't mind, let's do it our way,
Okay.
and then you can follow up with whatever you
Okay,
need
we can
to.
summarize, Presley?
Pardon?
We can summarize?
Yes.
Okay.
Does the council have any questions? Or, I know a lot of you, or some of you, have been getting questions from the public about things, and, oh, it's not your horn, Becky. Everybody give TC his car keys, or stand at the door and press them and see what happens. Okay, I'm sorry for the disruptions. Okay, now Connie's gonna lay down. May not be anybody left by the time we get
They'll all do that.
started here. They'll all come back, you're right. So, I'd just like to open it up and have some,
Yes.
Susan?
I love the idea of the lighting and the signage, but when I saw that you wanted to put a fence up, I didn't understand the reason behind the fencing. When I stand there and look at how beautiful it is, I love the open feel of it, and to me, a fence says, keep out. And I just would be concerned to see a big, tall fence, and I see the example, and of course, it is a lovely fence. I just hate to see what you've done be fenced in, so I was curious to know the reasoning behind it.
I think what we've discussed, and again, each situation that we've had confronted to us, we've tried to go through our board and make those agonizing decisions about what we should do or shouldn't do. And the fence has been one of those. But the fence we felt would accentuate and define the park itself. The park's not an ever-flowing park of that nature. Another side of that, we've seen people down there now that have been crossing through the park. An example, that I've seen out there on Facebook, you can define a nice sidewalk and make a 90-degree corner, and people are going to go this way instead of defining that way. And that's something we don't want to do. It's not going to be gated. It's going to be open 24/7. I've seen various not similar parks, because this is just one of three. The one in the block one is not fenced, of course, up the plaza. The one in Bowling Green has some barriers in front and back, but the two buildings are on the side of it. In that case, from our standpoint, we don't feel it's going to be encased, but we want to just define the park. It's not an ever-flowing park. We want to accentuate it with a very nice, sturdy fence. That's commercial materials as well, but equally, we feel that our rationale fits the scheme of what we're trying to put there. And I can have Adam explain a little more about the fence, but you see it now. I want you to understand, though, those spikes will not be, there'll be a top rail going across that, from a safety standpoint.
Charlie, why don't you hold it up so everybody
Okay.
can see? Some of the ones on this side can't see it.
Now, again, if somebody wants to just lift that up, that is heavy. That's a commercial style fence. Don't think of it as a residential fence, which is very light and can bend quite a bit. This is commercial. And I'm going to ask Adam, though, explain how it's fixed in the ground, if I could, because there's concern about how it's secured.
I don't want to go there yet.
All right.
I just don't want to go there
Does
yet.
anybody want to feel this, though, as far as commercial green or? 6-foot pieces, I believe, 5-foot height.
Charlie, the parks, excuse me, I'll let you go on. The parks that you referred to, are those on private property? Are those on public property? Are they on a campus? Are they on in a park,
the one-
separated?
The one up at Bowling Green, is a property that I believe the city purchased and then deeded back to the cancer board up there. Again, that's only one of three in Missouri itself. Again, our thought process is no different than what I just described.
So it's owned by the Cancer Memorial people.
That's the way I last understood it, the city. And you know, they could have a memorandum of understanding. Karen Daffron and I have not talked now since probably for the last 2 years. So.
I'm sorry.
I personally like the idea of the fence, and that it does define the park, and it keeps people from just cutting through. I mean, I vision kids down there on their bicycles. Once we develop that whole area, I see, you know, people, you know, we don't want skateboards in there. I mean, it is a memorial, it's an area that you want some solitude if you have people in there visiting. I think that the fence will kind of help route people in. The question I would have is it just going to be one way in and one way out? Or I know that there's a sidewalk that kind of goes over towards State Fair. Will that be an entry point also?
That will be the primary entrance.
That's the primary
Yeah,
entrance.
Yeah, that's primary entrance. That's where, when we discuss signage, that's where we like to
And then
put
would there
signage.
be entrance from 3rd Street?
Where we place those new steps, when we
Okay,
talked to Earl.
that's what
Yeah.
I had visioned.
Yeah.
I've been out of town, didn't get a chance to get down there, but, you know, it is a place of respect, and it's not anything that we want people just going through that aren't there for the reason of being there. I mean, to go down and visit, yes, but not to just cut through. I don't think we should allow shortcuts through there. I mean, there's other sidewalks to get to where it needs to be gone. And I personally like the idea of the fence. It's not real high.
Should be 5 foot.
5 foot.
Say that high.
Okay, thank you, Becky. Henry?
I agree with Becky. You know, if I'm down there thinking about my great-grandmother that passed away with cancer and reminiscing about her, I don't want some kid with a bicycle coming through there and people will. They will take the shortcut every time. I take the shortcut every time. The mailman takes the shortcut every time. If he's got a fence to go around, I guarantee he's not going to go over the fence. He's going to go around. But that's my thinking on it, is that, you know, if you're down there reflecting on your loved ones, you don't want just any and everybody running through it. I think a fence will deter a lot of that.
Okay. Any other comments?
It is, the only problem I see with no fence is it's right outside the door of State Fair. I teach class there, and I mean, it's like there's no space. It's just like right outside. It's like 5 or 10 feet, seems like right outside. And it just kind of is a fence to me would be, first of all, it would block the view of the beautiful building that they just spent a lot of money on. And I don't know, I think a fence would be awkward right out there, right out the door, and you're at a fence. As sitting in there watching it be built, I could,
Okay.
but
How about some of the other things, the lighting, since we're talking about all this?
I agree. I like them with Susan. I like the lighting.
Me
The idea of illuminating it. Like it says, it is going to be a place where people can go 24/7. We want it to be a lighted area. We want it to be a place where people feel safe, regardless of the time of day or night that they choose to go down there.
Okay. Where are the street, these are lights on poles?
These are, but in response to what Earl described, we had talked, Earl initially, when we were down there doing, I think, our second walkthrough, Earl had asked us to look at the light right outside of State Fair. It's, I don't know, Earl, it's about 12 foot tall, 10 foot tall. It's got a frame and it just points down, it deflects light downward. And I had called Gary and asked who the city had worked with, trying to find something comparable. And we spoke, and in fact, Charlie Haynes met with the guy down there, I think it's Steve Terrence. And he suggested a different style of lighting just to kind of fit into the scheme of the park, kind of fit into the kind of the lights that are on State Fair as well to the building. It's got a cap over it. It's a low wattage LED type light, and it just pushes light down. But it's more, I think, not just, well, it's functional, but it's decorative, but it's a safety side too, because with those steps being moved over now, and there never was a light, of course, on the old steps, but the old steps were never used. They were just there. And with this one, it would just accentuate those steps, and then you'd walk down the sidewalk, and that sidewalk would have low wattage lights about so tall, you've seen those before, that would silhouette the sidewalk going through there, and of course, nothing obtrusive in that approach.
Okay. The one thing that, since the administration building has been torn down, it sort of makes a whole different vista down there. And a lot of people are liking what they see as far as the green grass and that sort of thing. So we are starting to get some ideas together, and I know there was something on the internet. I don't think we're going to be going with that because with the cancer park and you've got quite a few things there, we don't want to detract from that. So ours is going to be rather simple. So it would include lights, though. So what Earl and I have kind of talked about, and I know Kate also has discussed this, maybe we could tie all the lights, they could all be the same, so it looks
We can do that if we know what that
continuous.
is going into it.
Huh?
If we knew what that is going into it, we
Okay.
can order our light consistent with that, sure.
Well, it might be a while, but couldn't you stub the wires there? And
Sure.
when we do, then you could put that in.
Yeah.
Because we might decide to put historic lights all along 3rd Street in front of the campus. And that would help with your lighting along there. But we have not made those decisions yet, and this body hasn't talked about that. So we can't tell you, yes, we're going to use this
Okay.
fixture. So we'd like to beg a little time on that.
I'm just a little bit concerned, Julie, that, when it's dark, those steps are going to be kind of a charcoal gray. That elite black will kind of go into that once we seal it and so forth like that, too. Of course, we'll have railing on both sides of the steps, but we need some probably temporary light, maybe not, I don't know, maybe none at all there until that time, but I'm just concerned a little bit about the entrance or the egress on that side being a safety issue.
Okay. Okay. Then I'll have to open my, the signage, I think Vanessa kind of spoke about a sign. No, you talked about the fence, I'm sorry. The fence being in front of Science Hall. I think our concern was that, that sign would be, as I understand it, it's going to be at the V there as you come in.
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
that correct?
Yes, the Y opening, so to
Okay.
speak, right.
So would that pretty much be right in front of Science Hall?
Well, what Charlie Haynes and I kind of stepped that off, and it was a step off. It's not a measure tape type thing, because it's a great question. If you looked at the entrance to Science Hall, it's about 25 feet off center. So if you're looking right at the door, it's 25 feet this way off center. If you stepped off from the Science Hall to where the sign is, it's about 40 feet from Science Hall. And what it will be, because I think there was some concerns initially that it might be parallel with Science Hall and 3rd Street. It won't be that way. As that Y, kind of comes out, it will be there, so it will be pointing southwest. So when you come by 3rd Street and you're looking at the building, all you're going to do is see the edge of the sign. And the premise of the sign, just very quickly, was that we did not allow any logos in the park. We felt it would commercialize the park. So those people like Boone, Ellis, and all those people, Orson, all those, they donated, and believe me, they're proud of those logos. They donated that money with the understanding that they would not have logos inside that park. But what we did say that there would be some type of signage, and we of course had not yet visualized what it might be, that we would put the logos outside the actual park. So they would have Boone Hospital Center with their logo, Central Missouri Board of Realtors with their logo. There's about 14 or 15 of those people as well too, in that nature, that would be on that, kind of the founding donors. It would have Central Missouri Cancer Memorial Park. This is just a concept of what the sign would look like. But again, I want to just say, it's not going to be parallel with that building or parallel with 3rd Street. It will be at an angle as you go into the Y. It will be more than likely 6-foot timbers to be consistent somewhat with the gazebo, the pavilion. It will be a pergola type style to kind of fit the scheme of things well too. It will be a stone base consistent with the color of the stones that we have in the park to fit the scheme of things. And then this sign, which is being designed by a person over in Plumville named Neil Pickett, and he was kind enough to come over and look at the scheme of the park, and he's going to laser cut those designs, those logos and so forth, in a piece of steel or metal and et cetera, and that will be placed inside, that frame, so to speak. It will probably be about 8 to 9 foot wide and probably about 8 foot tall in that case. So, you want it a little bit taller than an average person in that. But again, it's a pergola style top to that we fit, or is consistent with the scheme of the park.
With the cancer park,
Yeah, the cancer park.
not
right.
the campus.
Well,
Because
I really
all
don't
of the
call it- yeah.
all of the campus signs are monument signs.
Right.
So it's not consistent with anything
Yeah,
else
I'm
on
always
the
re-
campus.
yeah, I'm always referring to the cancer park. I know
Right.
nothing about the other side of that park, but.
And I
you
do know that State Fair does plan to put a sign for Science Hall.
Okay.
So, we're going to get pretty crowded pretty quick in that area.
Again, we're not aware of that.
Well, that's
Yeah,
what we
yeah,
want to make you
yeah,
aware of, Charlie.
yeah.
So,
But, again, what we're trying to do is not place something in the park, nor do anything in that neighborhood that would be obtrusive. We feel we've got a great product that we're presenting, and it's going to turn out very well.
so would you be opposed to moving the sign?
I don't know where we put it. I mean, we
Well,
push
if we
it
could
back-
find another place,
we
would you
could
be
push it
opposed
back a
to it?
little bit, but if it's not on the entrance side, that's going to be primary entrance there. Because the handicap accessibility, the parking is primarily that way as well.
Okay. But would you be willing to look at some alternatives?
I mean, possibly moving it back slightly. I don't know where we
Okay.
could put it in the park, Julie, to be honest with you.
Okay.
That's been the initial design all the way through, so.
I have to be honest with you guys. I'm getting a little frustrated. This body authorized this group to put a park on the campus, the Kemper campus, and we would collaborate with you. And we have tried to work through some problems, and I think we have. I think you've pretty well come out on the good side of most of them. Would you agree?
I don't really understand what.
Have you gotten most of the things that you wanted to have done in the park?
Well, conceptually, the people were presented what the concept of the park was, and as we tried to build through it, try to fit it into that green space down there without, trying to, again, anything that we do would be obtrusive in that nature to anyone down there, with all respect to the neighbors.
Okay. So what this group tasked Earl and I with was working with you so that you could go outside of planning and zoning and not have to go through all of that, but work with us. And we've been a little frustrated, I'll be honest with you. Whatever we say just isn't right.
Well, I'm not saying we respect what you said.
You're not saying that?
Well, as I've told Earl, there's a point where you agree to disagree, no difference than probably some of the members of this council on different issues.
Yeah, but who makes the final decision when you both disagree?
Well, to be candid with you, Julie, and Earl said it in his memo, there really hasn't been a final decision, and to me, that's why it was pushed over into this arena, so the final decision. I mean, to me, it's up to this group of people then, by being out
Well,
here in front of people.
I think what happens is, if you push it out into this arena, it's going to go to a different format. It's not going to be Earl and I making the decisions. It's going to be planning and zoning that's going to be making the decisions. And if that's what you want to do, that's fine. Does anyone else see it as that way? I mean, we had a motion to authorize Earl and I to work with you all, and now it just, all of a sudden, you all are making decisions, and we've got 3 people that want a fence and maybe 5 people that don't want a fence, but don't want to offend anybody by saying that. So it's put us in a very awkward situation.
And that's
And
not
we've
our-
been, I know, and it wasn't ours either, but it has not been, we have a lot of things going on other than the cancer park. And we're trying to work through this as fast as we can, but it's not always easy.
And-
So I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts on this, but that's the way I see it. If you push it back to the council, then it's going to go to planning and zoning first before it comes back to them. We're not going to make the decision in this body, in this arena, tonight, under public comments, as to whether we have a fence or not.
And I can understand that.
That's not the way we do things. So if it needs to go to planning and zoning before it comes to this group, so be it. But that's, I don't know, I need to hear from you guys. I've probably said too much now. Ned?
I think you've said it exactly the way we set it up. You were pressed. You were in a position where you wanted to get this done. And you wanted to get it done in a timely fashion. And the compromise to that was that the council, unanimously, the council passed a motion that gave Earl and Julie the authority to act on behalf of the city. It was a quid pro quo against the time, against having to have specific details on materials and design and all of that, which you didn't have. You had a start of it, Charlie.
Right.
You had a good start. But the only way that any of us could figure out a way so that you could move forward was to put you in the hands of the administration. Simple, easy. Then all it took was the 3 or 4, I don't know how many of you met with them, but it put you in a room together to work these things out. And then boom, we get this email, first from Earl, and then from you, and I'm sitting there and saying, wait a minute, we already dealt with this. This is over. Well, apparently it's not over, but it should be over. So now I'm arguing with myself, Charlie. I can't come down to a decision. This body, on all manners of buildings, goes to P&Z first. We made that exception for you and for your group so that you wouldn't have to go through an 18-month or a 12-month delay before you could get started. To me, it was a great compromise, and it was a great idea to do it. I'm just really bothered that we can't get this done. I mean, the wording of the motion was pretty clear. Earl and Julie have put in their time. You mentioned that Kate's put in some time. I have to assume that Gary probably has too, because he's Parks and Rec. I'd like to get this thing done and not have you and all your folks having to sit here tonight, listen to me be frustrated, listen to our mayor be frustrated, because there's no reason she needs to be frustrated, listen to our administrator be frustrated, and then a couple of council people that have specific issues. I don't need to get into the specifics, Charlie. I just want you to know, from my standpoint, Earl and Julie are in charge. They represent the city. The city owns the property. We need to get these things finished so that you can finish, and so that you and I don't have to have a disagreement, or any of the 8 of us have a disagreement. And it looks to me like it's pretty simple. Either we turn it back over to P&Z because we can't come to a decision, or we say, which we said that night, can you work with them? Can they work with you? And everybody said yes. And you go back down and you sit at the table and get it done. But in order to do that, you do have to make compromises. You do have to make decisions. And by the way, I've not been sitting in the room, so I'm not going to comment about that. Okay? I can't believe that we've gotten to this point. This is a great idea and a great thing to do. We're not finishing it up, and we need to do that, Charlie. So what I'd like to do is for you to talk with yourself and your folks and come back and tell us, do you want to go to the P&Z way, or do you want to continue to work with Earl and Julie? I don't want to hear anything else. That's all I want to know, because then I know it'll get done.
Pretty stringent, Ned, in that case. And if you are having an argument with yourself, then it's an intelligent argument. I will say that by nature. But with that being said, my thing here, and to be honest with you, I'm going to say this, okay? It's making us or myself look like a bad guy, and that's not it. I'm not trying to make argument here. Earl had, asked, about the fence, we had talked about the fence. I brought in a sample piece. Earl did comment that was a beautiful looking fence and so forth. I think there's still some indecision. Yes, I was pushing back and et cetera. I was pleased that Earl would say, well, we really haven't made a decision. Let's discuss in front of the council. It wasn't the fact that I was trying to backdoor anything then in that case. And I do respect the process, in that fashion. I respect what we're trying to do here. I respect the work of this council in that nature as well. My thing, if Julie and Earl is to make the decision about these three, they just need to make it. It could have been made 3 weeks ago. And if that's to say no fence, tell us no fence. If that's tell us to move the signage, then tell us to move the signage. If that says no lighting on that, thing, I would be remiss in not trying to explain why we need or should have these things with the park. No one could take a look at this park when we presented it. It was conceptually, as you pointed out.
Right.
And I think, as things start flowing, you look at some things and you have some different ideas about things, Ned. I mean, you worked on many projects that never started and finished the same way you visualized it when it started. And the same thing with this process. So if that's the way it's going to be, then Julie and Earl needs to say to us, then here's what it's going to be. I appreciate Earl pushing it back over in front of the group. And if Earl thinks we need to go in front of the planning and zoning, then we'll do that. We'll push off not getting this thing finished until the spring possibly. But we can't plant any more than possible. If we don't get some things planted, there's probably some things we can plant still yet.
Charlie, I think Earl and I did make it pretty clear that, I don't know, did you ever waver on the fence? And you don't have to answer if you don't want to. We made it clear. We did not like the fence. From the feedback we were getting, people did not want a fence. You come back, you were going to have a parallelogram or something.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then Earl and I are like, no.
Sweeping motion, yes.
So now you talk to the fence guy, and the fence guy tells you, no, a parallelogram is not right. So it's like anything we say is not valid.
Well,
But you
Earl-
go to someone else and it's valid from
Earl
them.
convinced me on the sweeping side of that. It was not
Well-
Adam, all right? Earl convinced
Okay,
that.
I think maybe we just need some better communication. And when we invited you to come to the council meeting, it wasn't to have them make the decisions. It was to ask you some questions. And you hung up before we could tell you that.
Okay, can I act as arbitrator here?
Yes,
He
that's
said
probably a
he'll
good
work with
idea.
you. You said you're going to work with him. Let's do it.
Well, I
You're
just
done.
want to make sure that you will work with us.
That's a good question, Charlie. You going to say
And I
yes?
don't need a negotiator, I even that damn well with all due respect.
You got it.
If Earl and Julie says no fence, let me know no fence. If it's going to be no signage or move the signage, then we'll take a look at that, contrary to what we've tried to present here. And if there's not going to be a light there, it's going to be a light at a later date, tell us that and we'll go forward.
Okay?
But if we've got to go in front of the PZ, planning and zoning, tell us that as well.
Well,
With
I
all due
think
respect.
for your benefit, it would be best for everybody's sake not to do that. I know you're trying to put a bow on this and have a celebration, and we would love to see that happen tomorrow. So we want this to happen as quickly as possible also, because quite honestly, like I said, we do have a lot of things going on right now, and we're ready to move on to another project. But we do need everybody's assurance that everybody's going to collaborate.
Did I hear that?
Pardon me?
Did I hear that? We're going to collaborate?
Ned,
We're going to work together?
Julie and I can speak to one another and we
Okay,
hear
good.
one another. I don't need a
All right.
third party,
Yeah.
with all due respect.
And of course, we're on the
Take it.
World Wide Web, so we can always go back and
There
listen
you
to
go.
this.
Hear ourselves saying.
Let's hear from the council.
I do
What
have
you
a
guys-
question, though. Julie, you indicate that, you got feedback from people that they didn't want the fence.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't aware that there was even an idea of a fence
Right.
until I heard it from the group. So not to name names, but, who were the people, where was that input
Street
coming
talk,
from?
people talking on the street that there's going to be,
Okay.
fence.
Because I don't know how widespread the plan is out in the community.
Well,
Because-
probably not very widespread.
Yeah, because I know we have a good showing tonight of people that are in support of the fence.
And they know about the plan, whereas we are the ones that are supposed to make sure that people in the community know what's going on. I went to the grocery store yesterday, and somebody said, "Are they really going to put a fence around that?"
But
So-
do they understand what that means to put a
Yes,
fence around it?
they do. And they said, "Why would they put a fence around it?" So I said exactly what Charlie told me, and I think you want to keep dogs and cats out and that sort of thing. Is that correct?
Well, I
Dogs,
mean, it
cats,
would
and
help
kids.
evade that issue.
So I told them, and they really, they just like the continuous look of that whole quadrant there in front of the campus.
Because with the design of the fence, I mean, Vanessa even indicated she thought it would block, but it's open, it's tiered, it's not a solid fence that's blocking any view. So, I don't know, I think it could add to the aesthetic appearance.
Did you have your hand up?
I just think that the whole look of that area has changed since we, started talking. Like, once that administration building came down, then it's all open, and like, you guys changed your mind about the fence, and then it's open, and then we also opened Science Hall, and there's actually business going on there, and egress, and coming and going, and windows that you look out, so that's all changed, and it wasn't like that when you broke ground, and so I think the main thing we need here is time, and some time to say, wait a minute, we want to look, we want to think about this, we want to think where the best place for these things would be. Maybe you could do plantings, shrubbery plantings that could be directional instead of, we
Vanessa,
don't want to rush into.
If I could say something without sounding defensive, because it seems like we're on the defense, but where I made a mistake when I made the initial, presentation to the council, I did not reference fence. I did not. I went back to the YouTube, and I did not, and I apologize for that. But every presentation I've made, whether it's Boone, whomever, and Valley's been in there, I've referenced fence, because we always wanted to define the situation. So it's not really something we changed. I was in error in not doing it in front of the city initially when I made the presentation. But ever since we conceptually came up with the concept, because again, not knowing what was taking place down there, and given that footprint, we were defining a fence there. So, again, not to say I'm defensive, just, stating that point.
But I think we do need to really start even looking at the lighting situation too, even if there's a wait for everything to be the same, and I think that is, I agree with that.
Okay.
To a degree, but I think we may need to allow something to be set up temporarily, because I think we do want it to be accessible, we want it to be used, and we want it to be safe.
Sure. Okay. Well, I think the question is, does the council still want for Earl and I to work with the park, or do you want to send it to planning and zoning? That's the question we need to answer. It's not about fences, it's not about any of this other stuff, it's about planning and zoning.
It's beautiful what you've created so far, and you've done that working with Mayor and Earl, and I'd like to see that continue. I think there are solutions here, and solutions where you don't have to delay it much further to get the things done that you want to get done, plus with an eye to the future with the lighting. I understand the idea about the fencing. I hadn't really thought about the points that have been made. I still love the vista, but, whatever is decided, I think I'd like to see you all work together.
I think conceptually, though, the signage is most critical coming out of this meeting. We made a commitment, and you can find fault with me for doing that, then, that people would not have logos in that park. And again, putting that sign near that Y area at an angle, southwest direction, I would not tend to think that's obtrusive to that science building, because we respect the science building. In fact, we're have asked Julian Earl, we can plant some shrubbery there to outline that building as well too, as a thank you, and, they've agreed to do so. But that sign is something that has to be, I feel, there when we open the park to let those people know, like Orscheln, who donated quite a bit of money to it, the Boone Hospital Center, because they all want to be part of that dedication ceremony as well too, so.
Charlie, I don't think we're being critical of you for putting logos on the sign. I
I'm not.
I
I'm
didn't
not. I
mean,
don't feel
okay,
that
I
at
thought
all.
that's what you just said.
No, I don't feel that at all.
But we just would like to maybe look at some different options, and maybe it's just maybe we just need to get a board is that size, and you
We
set
can
it
do
up,
that. We can
and
do that.
bring us down there, and we say, hey, look, if you turn it 6 degrees this way and move it 6 inches this way, there's no problem.
Mr. Haynes can have that
So-
set up tomorrow.
Okay, well, I just think we need to work on some of this stuff together. So I think you're saying continue with the, we
That's
spent a
what I
lot of
would
time
like,
talking about
because
this.
so far
and-
you've created something very nice.
Yes.
And beautiful, really, so I think you can accomplish it. You just kind of hit a wall here with a couple of the final details, so I think you just need to go down and try things out and see what's going to look right and think about the future in terms of the whole area.
Yeah.
Well said.
Any other comments on that?
Mayor,
Yes.
as a councilman, sometimes I think maybe I missed a meeting. I did miss the last meeting, I was in the hospital. But I think sometimes I miss a meeting or something. But, you talk about some folks don't want this fence. I wish some of those folks would call me. People don't call me. I don't know where all this information, it's like surveys. Everybody talks about all these surveys and who's what in the presidential election. Nobody surveyed me, ever, so
You're kidding.
I think
Start answering your
I
phone.
would like to have, as we go through this, I'd like to have some information, because the only way I found out that where the administration building was going to be a park was in the Daily News. That's the first I've ever heard about it being a park. And I talked a little bit yesterday, Morris and I were down there, and we talked a little bit about some of this stuff, and it's like, that's the first time I've ever heard this, so.
Yeah. Well, that goes back several years.
Yeah, it does.
I've been
Because-
here several years, longer than anybody here.
Yeah, I know, okay, you were there.
And some visual
But-
diagrams were brought to a meeting and shown.
Yeah, Miko did some
Yes, Miko did.
visuals, so yeah, it's, I think, been discussed. And it's actually part of a requirement, it's a Section 106 requirement that when we tear down a building that's on the National Register of Historic Places, there's several things we have to do, and one is document it historically written, which we've done. You have to document it with photos, which we've done, and you have to have a permanent, what would it be called? Memorial or some sort of acknowledgement that that was what that was. That's like down at the bridge, the cobblestone street. That's a Section 106 park. So that's been discussed. And I've had people say, why didn't you put the cancer park up there? So that's, if anybody asks that, that's why. That's Section 106 thing. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
Mr. Rob.
Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make a public comment at this time? You have 5 minutes.
Thank you all for coming.
Yes, thank you very much. Approval of the minutes of the September 19th, 2016 council meeting. You had those in your packet. Are there any additions or corrections? Seeing none, they will stand as presented. Consent items, we have 5. A pay request for number 1925-2 from Lewis Crum Corporation. Consider pay request number 2 from Stockman Construction Corporation in the amount of $92,805.37 for concrete street repairs. Consider pay request number 1 from Vance Brothers in the amount of $32,416.78 for asphalt pavement seals. Consider pay request number 2, final, from Cody Martin Excavating LLC in the amount of $64,107.25 for Kemper Military School Administration Building demolition. And consider change order number 1 from Cody Martin Excavating in the amount of $10,085.95 credit for Kemper Military Academy Administration Building. Do I hear a motion? Morris?
Mayor, make a motion this be approved.
Thank you very much. Do I hear a second?
Second?
Thanks, Becky. Okay, roll call.
Stock,
Yes.
Venable,
Yes.
Meadows.
Yes.
Beach,
Yes.
Hurt,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Ayers.
Yes.
Dorman.
Yes.
Presentation of accounts and claims. Teresa?
Ordinance appropriating money. Be it ordained by the council of the city of Boonville as follows. Section 1, for the purpose of paying salaries and various accounts against the city of Boonville which have been allowed by the council at the regular meeting thereof on October 3rd, 2016, the sum of $461,963.78. General fund, $52,797.38. Sanitation, $16,287.24. CIP tax, $48,318.41. Waterworks, $116,546.17. Capital projects, $0.00. Wastewater, $135,539.16. Tourism, $4,314.98. Gaming, $44,512.70. Parks and Water, $43,647.74. Section 2, the accountant is hereby authorized and instructed to draw checks on the respective city bank accounts in favor of the persons whose salaries and accounts have been allowed as above, amounting to $461,963.78, being the total amount of money above appropriated. Section 3, this ordinance shall take effect and be enforced from and after its passage. First reading on October 3rd, 2006, read for the second time this third day of October 2016, since a copy was made available prior to the meeting.
Second reading, title only.
Ordinance appropriating money.
Mayor, I move that we approve this ordinance.
Thank you, Becky. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Morris. Roll call.
Stock,
Yes.
Venable,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Beach,
Yes.
Hurt,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Ayers.
Yes.
Dorman.
Yes.
Okay. Unfinished business. Second reading of bill number 2016-028, removing one-way traffic restriction going westbound on Chestnut Street between 6th and Main.
An ordinance of the City of Boonville, Missouri, removing the restriction to one-way traffic going westbound on Chestnut Street between the north-south alley, mid-block between 6th and Main Streets, and Main Street, and opening it to two-way traffic flow, providing an effective date therefore, and repealing all ordinances in conflict with this ordinance.
Morris?
Mayor, I make a motion this be approved.
Okay, do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ned. Discussion or questions? Pretty straightforward. Roll call.
Stock,
Yes.
Venable,
Yes.
Meadows,
Yes.
Beach,
Yes.
Hurt,
Yes.
Carter,
Yes.
Ayers.
Yes.
Dorman.
Yes.
New business, consider approval of highway road salt bid for fiscal year 2016-17. ML, you want to walk us through that real quick?
You notice that the prices are lower than we've seen in a couple years, but more noticeable or notable is that this is the first time that we haven't had qualifications. Remember last year, year before, we had to buy 80% of our allocation from certain periods, and then there's been times we purchased from Cargill, we had to buy it in 100-ton lots by rail car, and there's no qualifications on this. It's the 600 tons we want at the price we want to purchase it when we want it. And as a side note, it's all U.S. salt. In previous years, we've had salt from Santiago, Chile. This is all from Louisiana, state of.
That make it better?
I don't know, I don't really know the difference. One of them comes from Avery Island. Your Tabasco sauce may not quite be the same.
Will this be enough for a heavy winter?
Yeah. We're full. We've probably got 1,500 tons or so in our salt storage shed. Because the previous year, we had purchased 1,000 tons or so, and then last year, I purchased right at the 80% of my allocation. I didn't buy any more. And of course, we only had 3 or 4 light winters. So I don't have room for 600 tons now, but I'll use it and have room. So I will have better than 2,000 tons of salt on hand, or available to us, I guess.
Any other questions? Roll call.
Do we probably,
Oh, we don't have I thought we had a motion on that.
I'll make a motion this be approved.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mike. Well, I guess now we can have a discussion. Any more questions? Roll call.
Stock?
Yes.
Venable?
Yes.
Meadows?
Yes.
Beach?
yes,
Hurt?
Yes.
Carter?
Yes.
Ayers?
Yes.
Dorman?
Yes.
Reports of standing committees, Parks and Rec Board, Whitney?
I was unable to attend, I was out of town, but everything's in the packet. Gary did a good job of presenting that information.
Okay. Street, alley, and sanitation, Susan?
That meeting was canceled. There weren't any agenda items.
Okay. Fire Board, Mike?
I was not able to make it, but the minutes are in page 26.
Okay. Board of Public Works, Morris?
The meeting was canceled.
Okay. Reports of city officials, city administrator?
Yes, I have one thing I think deserves public clarification. In the Boonville Daily News, Friday, September 30th, there's an article about K-berries. And about halfway down, there's a paragraph that says, "The alumni spent much time and resources to try to save the Kemper Administration Building, but not enough money could be garnered. What funds were collected were given to the city so they can continue the process of restoration of other historic buildings on campus." I just think it's useful for the record to represent. I've been here about 10 years, and to this date, we haven't received a nickel from anybody associated with Kemper or any other private individual. And the only exception ever was the Economic Development Administration. So there's been lots of talk over the years, and it remains talk. So.
Thank you, Earl.
good clarification.
Mayor, I have nothing. City Councilor?
No report,
Carissa?
thank you.
City Clerk?
No report tonight.
No report. Miscellaneous? Several weeks ago, we had Brad Woolridge come, and we have been working on that, and we should have a report hopefully at the next meeting for you to consider. So, any other miscellaneous? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned.
We are still,
Okay.
Whoever, somebody.
They give scholarships.